I don't know about you guys, but usually when I hear people say, "Oh, women should be supporting other women. We need to stop undercutting each other," and basically what I'm hearing is we should not be holding each other accountable. I don't know if maybe I'm just the only one. I mean, I definitely agree that we should support women in a way that, we should be, uplifting women, and we should be empowering women. I agree with all of that, 100%. But there's a difference between supporting women in their goals and supporting women in, leaving their abusive spouse or something like that, giving women that support versus blind support and not holding each other accountable. Is what it sounds to me when people, say, "Oh, women are too quick to criticize each other. We should be supporting each other." Like, a lot of it sounds like it's very uncritical. You know what I'm saying? So I want to kind of tackle some of those questions. And this is especially true sometimes when it comes to women, particularly white women against women of color. I know this tends to be, a bit of a thing that happens, that white women like to say, "Oh, we should be supporting each other," but then they don't support their sisters in the Black community or the Latina community. There's not a lot of uplift there. There's not a lot of uplift of working class women. You know what I'm saying? So I want to break this down. So first off, I want to start with a tweet that I received when I had a little critique of Alexandria Ocasio Cortez. Okay. And I'll be the first to say, I have no real beef with AOC. I just don't think that she's doing the job that we put her in Congress to do. And I'm going to critique a policy or a tactic that I don't appreciate or that I don't think works. And so I think that there is a big disconnect between saying, you don't support women or you're bashing women versus, no, I'm criticizing that person for having a bad take or pushing the wrong thing or saying something that I disagree with. So let me share this tweet with you guys.
Love you back. And reviled. Find out when I... What's it like to be adored? Love you back. And reviled. Find out when I speak with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio Cortez about being ambitious.
Power can be beautiful.
Being terrified.
I was preparing myself for the worst.
And are you going to challenge Senator Schumer? Join me for Being, a new CNN series.
Monday at 9, only on CNN.
What's it like?
So I had criticized AOC for this specific comment that she made, in which she says, "Power can be beautiful." And, I didn't say out front why I was critical of this statement. And so I'll get into that with I got into it a little bit with my response. So let me go back to that. I could make this bigger, but unfortunately I can't because the person who made the comment blocked me. So this is the only way that I can show it. All right. So in making that comment, this person responded, "Women are always the first to not uphold other women. It is sad no matter what the context is. Women do a lot and get no credit. Look at all the men who support this or who support Doron. Come on, do we have to make everything about Jimmy Dore, guys? Come on. Who go along with the woman bashing. It is sad." So I responded, so because I am critical of AOC saying power can be beautiful, I am a woman. I'm a woman bashing Dore stan. Like, that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, guys. So, as I said, this has nothing to do with not upholding other women. This has to do with your narrow view of what that means. And what I meant by that is that I'm being critical of AOC saying power can be beautiful. Because in a way, she's not entirely wrong. Power can be beautiful. The unfortunate reality is that very often power is not wielded in a beautiful way. Power can be corrupting. So when I'm critical of AOC saying power can be beautiful, it's like, okay, but power for whom? What power is beautiful? And how exactly are we using that power? Because sure, we want people to have power over their own lives. We want people to have power in politics and have their vote mean something. You know, that type of power can be beautiful. But this is exactly what I'm getting to, Weird Pilgrim, that this is very much a girl boss, badass woman type of uplifting of women, because it's a very uncritical take on supporting women. Like, oh, support women and everything that they do. Okay, so if you're going to be supportive of all women, does that mean that you're also supportive of Gina Haspel being the CIA? You know, the head of the CIA? Are you supportive of all the women who are making money in the military industrial complex? Like, are we supportive of all of these women? You know, girl boss. So this is what I'm talking about when I say that there's such a thing as being uncritical in supporting women. As being uncritical is not a good thing. You know, bashing women, degrading women, that's not good. We should not be bashing or degrading women, but that's not what I was doing at all. I was not bashing AOC. I was trying to make a point about something that she said. And I am very critical about someone. Yes, exactly, Virtual Jonathan. Do we support Thatcher? Do we support Yellen? Like, this is a very uncritical view when we just, blanket statement say support women. That's really damaging. And that doesn't, especially when we're not supporting, lower income women, we're not supporting poor women, we're not supporting women of color, indigenous women, women in the global south. Are we supporting any of them? Because I know they need a lot of support. So this is what I'm talking about a very uncritical version of feminism. It's a very bourgeois version of feminism. So let me continue looking at this tweet because I can explain it more. So as I said, this is nothing to do about not upholding women. Like, we need to be holding everyone in power accountable. Doesn't matter if they're a woman or a man. And I say that women do a lot with very little credit. Do you understand how many billions of dollars of unpaid labor that women do every year? Billions of dollars, guys, of unpaid labor that women do not get credit for. Physical labor, emotional labor, like billions of dollars that women will never, ever, ever see. But cheerleading a politician does nothing to change this. Nothing. What exactly does me cheerleading AOC do? Am I going to coddle her into submission to make sure that she's actually doing her job? No, she has power, and I expect her to use that power for good. So yes, I am going to be holding her accountable just like I would any other politician. It doesn't matter that she's a woman. In fact, because she understands, I do expect more. As I say in this tweet, supporting women is a useless phrase if it's not reciprocal. And I want to bring up this. Let me stop this, and I'm going to switch the screen for just a moment because there's something else that I want to bring up. Let me share. Let me share my regular screen because I think that because I want to show you guys something that comes from Bell Hooks. So Bell Hooks, she quotes This is a quote from Mary Barfoot, someone that I greatly admire. But let me read this part of it. So it says, mainstream patriarchy, I'll start from right here. Mainstream patriarchy reinforced the idea that the concerns of women from privileged class groups were the only ones worth receiving attention. Feminist reform aimed to gain social equality for women within the existing structure. That's what we're dealing with right now. We have a system of patriarchy, and we have women working within the structure in order to try to change it. Privileged women wanted equality with men of their class. So this is that fake meritocracy that we're always talking about. So despite sexism among their class, they would not have wanted to have the lot of working class men. Feminist efforts to grant women social equality with men of their class neatly coincided with white supremacist capitalist patriarchal fears that white power would diminish if non-white people gained equal access to economic power and privilege. Supporting what in effect became white power reformist feminism enabled the mainstream white supremacist patriarchy to bolster its power while simultaneously undermining the radical politics of feminism. So in other words, all these efforts, particularly white feminists and white elitist feminists and elitist white women, particularly ones who are getting into positions of power while in the existing structure, basically and we know this for a fact that a lot of the times when women get to those levels of success, it's not because of their femininity. It's because of their way of being able to harness their masculinity. Because there is female masculinity. And by playing into those patriarchal structures and patriarchal ideas of success, in order to be a boss woman, you have to have, you see this a lot in films, like that kind of cold veneer and kind of pushing family aside, giving up the feminine in order to take on masculine traits in order to be successful. We see that a lot in film. So it's become acceptable to take on those roles. But that's because they're not changing the structure. They're basically just preserving and upholding the structures that got men in power. Just women are also using those same power dynamics. They're not changing them. And this is known also, there's something called the queen bee effect, where once women get into power, because there can only be so many women in power, they then knock down the ladder after they've broken that glass ceiling. They knock down the ladder, and they're very harmful to the women beneath them because they need to keep that position of power for themselves. So I'm sorry, am I supposed to be supportive of that? Am I supposed to be supportive of that? I don't think so. So she goes on. Only revolutionary feminist thinkers express outrage at this co-optation of feminist movement. Our critique and outrage gained a hearing the alternative. Our critique and outrage gained a hearing the alternative press. In her collection of essays, The Coming of Black Genocide, radical white activist Mary Barfoot boldly stated, "There are white women, hurt and angry, who believe that the 70s women's movement meant sisterhood, and who feel betrayed by Escalator women, by women who went back home to the patriarchy. But the women's movement never left the father Dick side." So meaning that the elitist women who had adopted feminism without truly doing consciousness raising and unlearning their sexism, they never left the patriarchy. They just saw feminism and said, oh, this is a good opportunity for me to gain social mobility. This is a good way for me to raise myself in my economic class and gain equality with the men of my class. So that's what she means by the women's movement never left the father dick side. They never unlearned sexism. So they're still using the same patriarchal structures in order to gain power. So there was no war and there was no liberation because all women are not free. All women are not free. There is no liberation. We got a share of genocide profits and we love it. Let me read that part again. We got a share of genocide profits and we love it. So basically, those elitist women became just further oppressors. Not that they weren't already. Not that elitist white women weren't already oppressors, because we know, especially during slavery, the female slave owners were just as bad as the male slave owners. Queens can be just as bad to the serfs as the kings, or the ladies are just as bad to the peasantry as the lords. This is not anything new, but we got a share of genocide profits and we love it. We are sisters of patriarchy and true supporters of national and class oppression. Patriarchy in its highest form is Euro imperialism on a world scale. If we're Dick's sister and want what he has gotten, then in the end, we support that system that he got it all from. So basically, Barfoot is saying that if we are using the same tools as men used to gain power, because we want that power that he has, and we use those same tools to acquire it, then we are upholding patriarchy. We are supporters in upholding patriarchy. Because we can also gain power in patriarchy if it means oppressing other people. That's fucked up. All right, but here's a good continuation. So indeed, many more feminist women found and find it easier to consider divesting of white supremacist thinking than of their class elitism. Because very often, because we know if we can have, we can have a brown, as Cornel West likes to say, we can have a black face in a high place. People don't have a problem with that, as long as they're still playing these same politics. I mean, look at Cory Booker right now. Cory Booker is giving money, like, I can't remember which exactly, maybe you guys can tell me. What was it? I think it was Money for Cops. Is that what it was that Cory Booker recently co-signed on? Maybe you guys can tell me. I'll wait for you guys. Yeah, so it was cops giving money to the police. Okay, so Casey says yes. Roxanne says yes. Okay. All right. So back to bell hooks for a moment. So this is all internalized sexism, internalized racism, guys. Like, we are all taught to seek higher class interests, particularly people who already come from privilege. They're always less likely to divest their class elitism than anything else. But they don't understand that these things are hand in hand. Like, you can divest in white supremacist thinking rather than class elitism, but there's an intersectionality there. Because if you're not giving up your class elitism, you're not really giving up your white supremacist thinking. Because those things are intersectional. You can't get rid of one without getting rid of the other. Okay, so as she continues, as privileged women gained greater access to economic power with men of their class, feminist discussions of class were no longer commonplace. Instead, all women were encouraged to see the economic gains of affluent females as a positive sign for all women. In actuality, these gains rarely changed the lot of poor and working class women. And since privileged men did not become equal caretakers in the domestic household, the freedom of privileged class women of all races has required the sustained subordination of working class and poor women. In the 90s, collusion with the existing social structure was the price of women's liberation. At the end of the day, class power proved to be more important than feminism. And this collusion helped to stabilize feminist movement. So that's a great way of simply talking about what I'm referring to. The fact that all these things are intersectional. Like, just because you divest of your, unsexist thinking, or you divest of sexist thinking or racial, white supremacist thinking, like, that class divide will always continue those same structures. Because as long as there is class elitism, you will still have sexism, because there's still that hierarchy of, rich men, rich women, middle class men, middle class women, poor men, poor women. Those are always going to exist unless you get rid of sexism, get rid of racism, get rid of imperialism, because all of those things are all underneath the same pool. Okay, so when I say to AOC, when I question her saying power can be beautiful, again, I question, what type of power are you talking about? Whose power? Because if you're just acquiring power, you're not using it to make things better for those who are still powerless, then what good is that power? Because you're not using it for the betterment. Like, we put you in there to use that power to the betterment of all of us, and you're not doing that. So, yes, power can be beautiful, but for whom? Exactly, Jonathan. She is obscuring class divisions. Absolutely. So let me go back to that tweet that I was talking about a moment ago to continue this discussion. I'm not sure if I finished talking about that one. Let me bring it back up. So I say, we must remain critical of our politicians and hold them accountable. This is not the same as harassing or bashing them. Like, I didn't say anything mean about AOC. I didn't say anything about, like, oh, she's, corrupted because she's a woman or anything like that. I'm not, putting her down for anything. I'm being critical of something that someone in power has said about power. Like, that's what I'm critical of. I'm not critical of her. I'm critical of the point that she made. So I say, we must remain critical of our politicians and hold them accountable. This is not the same as harassing or bashing them. I am critical of power. I'm not a supporter of bourgeois, girl boss feminism. I'm a supporter of feminism for the 99%. Right. I think that this is actually a good point. The AOC probably thought nothing of that phrase except as a cute soundbite. Right, thank you, Optimism of the Well. That is awesome of you to say. The poor experience the same faults of society. Right. Reputation, I'm going to push back on that. Because the whole idea of what this about women, supporting women, empower women, the whole idea of it is this, is that for under patriarchy, women are we're expected to compete against one another for male attention and in order to, gain a good husband. That's very much been the idea behind, women hating women. Like, it's always for the betterment of men. So whenever we say, supporting women, it's supposed to be about uplifting women, stopping the competition, amongst one another, and having female solidarity with one another. And this is true even of like, I can't remember who wrote it, but someone was talking about like during slavery. Like you would think that, women that the white slave owning women would feel, guilt, feel bad about their husbands raping black slave women, but it was actually the opposite. They were actually jealous of the black slave women, because they saw them as competition for their husband's affection. How messed up is that? So underneath patriarchy, women supporting each other is seen as taboo. So that's why there's so much emphasis on, we women should support one another. We shouldn't be competing with one another. Unfortunately, as I just said, what often happens is that turns into kind of a girl boss attitude of supporting women no matter what it is that they're doing. It's very uncritical. So let me bring up something else. Where is my book? So again, I'm turning to bell hooks here. I'm turning to bell hooks. This is from her book, Feminist Theory from Margin to Center. And she says here that she talks about the difference between solidarity and support. So listen to what she says. Solidarity was a word seldom used in contemporary feminist movement. Much greater emphasis was placed on the idea of support. Support can mean upholding or defending a position one believes is right. It can also mean serving as a prop or a foundation for a weak structure. So again, the idea of uncritically holding up women because, there's this idea of that supporting women means that we're uplifting each other, we're showing solidarity, but really, very often what happens is that's just akin to a very shallow support. It's based on a very weak structure. Like imagine, like we say, we need to have a female president. We need to have a female president, without being critical of the woman running for president. But no, you have to support her because she's a woman. Because there's a special place in hell for women who do support other women. See how that works? When we have a very uncritical version of supporting women. This is very interesting what you're saying. Could be biological or something hardwired. Except that a lot of the women who like to use this type of phraseology don't support trans women. Stevie, I support Hillary. She had a heart being a woman in a man's world. She's a girl boss. I mean, don't get me wrong. There was certainly sexism against Hillary Clinton. There was. Very much so. We can all acknowledge that there was sexism against Hillary Clinton. I'm not gonna say anything against that. It was true. However, in order for her to gain power, the power that she had, she did it by upholding those same structures that she used feminism as a way to gain power. It's like I'm saying, like, this is just sexist. Like, it didn't matter if any attacks against her were legitimate, because of the sexist attacks that were legitimate. Even the attacks that were illegitimate. I mean, any attacks against her that were legitimate, she just cast off as sexism, and we saw the media help her with this. We saw this, and so let me continue on. So, this latter meaning had a greater significance in feminist circles. Its value emerged from the emphasis on shared victimization. So that's what this whole thing became about. That's why what I say about a weak structure is that it's built on a structure of identifying all women as victims. And if all women are victims, then anything a woman does that helps her to gain power that is her beating the victimization, not considering at all the faults of that woman. Like, women are not, like, this is one of the problems with like girl boss feminism and supporting women uncritically, is that we're basically putting women on a pedestal, saying that they are without fault, which we know is not true. So if we're saying all women are without fault, okay, then who's going to be the next president? Sarah Palin? Tommy Lauren? Candace Owens? You know, when you think about it that way, it sounds ridiculous. And also the fact that this does not go in other directions. This does not go in other directions. Like, was Hillary supportive of the women who were accusing her husband of rape and sexual assault? No. She was bashing them too. And after her, during her candidacy as president in 2016, she ran for president as, the female candidate, and had Madeleine Albright come out and say there's a special place in hell for women who don't support other women. But then, did Hillary then turn around and support Cynthia Nixon for governor, even though she would be the first governor of New York? The first lesbian governor of New York as well. Did Hillary Clinton support Cynthia Nixon? No, she didn't, did she? She did not support Cynthia Nixon when she was running for governor of New York. No. So it's sisterhood and support for her. I'm with her. I'm with her. That's the whole point. I'm with her. It's not I support women. I'm with her. I support Hillary Clinton. And that's the problem. This is what I mean about, girl boss feminism and escalator women, as Mary Barfoot said. It's about those women rising into power and only using their power for their own self promotion. Because you did not then see Hillary support Cynthia Nixon. And if we had supported Cynthia Nixon, we wouldn't be going through what we're going through with Cuomo right now. So is this women supporting other women? No. This is Hillary supporting herself. That's what it was. It was Hillary wanting power. Exactly, improvisation. It's I'm with her, but not her. No. Because it's all about power. It's not actually about supporting women. It's about women supporting her and her accumulation of power. Just as Bell Hooks said in that statement that I wrote a moment ago, that it became about affluent women gaining power, and all women should just be grateful for it because now we have a female president who will also oppress us. Yay! Exactly. We're supposed to be with her, but she's not with you. Nope, not at all. Not at all. Definitely not. And so, as I said, we wouldn't be having this problem with Cuomo right now if Cynthia Nixon had won. Not that I'm saying that if Hillary had endorsed her, she would have won. We don't know that. We can't, Monday morning quarterback that election. But the main point that I'm making is that if she were in fact truthful in her idea that we need to be supporting all women, then she would be backing that up. She likes to talk the talk. She doesn't walk the walk. And a lot of these different people do. And it's the same with, it is the same, someone brought up Kamala Harris. It is true. Like, nobody supported Kamala Harris. It had nothing to do with the fact that she was a woman of color or, a woman or a woman of color. The fact of the matter is, there was a lot wrong with Kamala Harris. I mean, look at what she did in California. Like, she was the AG and she locked up more Black and brown people. She refused to let a lot of people out of jail because she wanted them to be used as prison labor. She locked up parents of truant children, most of them Black and brown. So this is what I keep saying about not being, like, there's solidarity with women, and there's a difference between solidarity and support. Okay, and we'll get into that a little later, but let me continue this for a second. So as I said, all this idea of, supporting women, and the reason that so many women have been able to get away with using the mantra support women in order to gain power is because of this idea of women as being victims of patriarchy. The idea of the understanding of patriarchy we need to understand is that because we live in patriarchy, we are all taught patriarchal thinking. We're all taught sexist thinking. We have to unlearn that sexist thinking if we're going to dismantle patriarchy. And so many women, latch onto feminism without ever actually letting go of that sexist thinking. They don't unlearn it. They don't go through consciousness raising. They just claim feminism for themselves and use it for their own self-promotion. And that's what I mean about, like, Hillary Clinton. Because a lot of the feminisms that we see in media are these very blasé, surface-level feminisms that say, oh, go girl, female empowerment, empowered women, empower other women, girl boss. There is no, the critical feminisms don't actually gain traction. Like militant feminism. Like it's all neoliberal feminism, girl boss feminism, lean in feminism. That's what it's all about. It's about leaning in. And it's the idea that if women acquire power, that's good for all women, but it's not. Because as she said, that type of empowerment very rarely, if ever, helps other low-income women, middle-class women. It doesn't do anything for them. Brianna Joy Gray may go check out her live stream from Sunday night. She and Pascal Robert from Black Agenda Report, they actually made very similar arguments about the Black community. So I would recommend that you go and check that out, because this is very true that whether it's sexism, whether it's racism, like when we have a fake meritocratic system, the idea that this is under capitalism, like feminist capitalism, Black capitalism, however you want to say it. Very often, the idea is when we have a brown face in a high place, when we have a female face in a high place, that's good for the entire community, but it's not, because who gets left behind? Who gets left behind? Who actually gets power? Is it individual who gets power, or is it the whole community that gets power? It's the individual. And they don't come back and share it with the rest of the community. They don't. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another video. See you Killjoys next time.